Any other comments? Moving on, data ownership. Each platform user must have complete control of their data. Okay, we kind of already talked about that already out of band. Are there any more comments on that issue? All right. Data storage must be stored and retrieved from a distributed, decentralized network of storage containers. Well, Dan and Sonder disagree with that.
Yeah.
Or essentially what? Please repeat what you said earlier.
Say, or individual vaults. Let's call it vaults.
Okay. Right, well, that was kind of similar to my file-based idea. It's going to be individual vaults.
Yeah, but not necessarily.
No, when I write individual vaults here, is individual machines, phones that's running the software, vault software.
So there are three options. Store it in a decentralized network ledger. One is storing it yourself on multiple devices within your household or within your network. And the other option is storing it in centralized hubs or multiple centralized hubs when it's quite decrypted, so non-accessible.
Right. Okay. Or in centralized, yeah. Hubs protected by private keys. Okay. All right. Portability. Go ahead.
I can give one example. Like I have hundreds of thousands of photos I've taken over the years, and I run them on a private server I have, or home server. And I would like to access those on my phone, right, without actually having to sync or download the whole photo and the whole archive. But I also can't have them encrypted, right? Because it would be impossible to have all that data encrypted. I want to have it like accessible through an SMB network share, something like that. So that's why you need to have in mind sort of the all the way from basically sharing files you have on a folder on a server somewhere, or a machine or a laptop, that it just runs somewhere. That's the most basic. The most advanced then would be sort of like file base, where you have distributed network of completely encrypted data.
Okay. Okay.
Well, why wouldn't you encrypt your data even if you have it locally?
You'll probably have encryption on the disk that the operating system handling the keys, right? Okay. But there's no way I'm gonna encrypt my photos, because I have backup of them as well, take backup once in a while. And I don't want to have them encrypted, because if there's just one mistake on an encrypted disk with hundreds of thousands of photos, you lose those photos.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I mean, but also if you look at the storing in some other provider, and then in encrypted format, then for example sharing your photos with friends, then you just need to provide like decryption key and the link, and you don't have to just. It's easier to share data rather than sending in the entire payload of the picture of the photo, for example.
If I may raise, what would the scope of the platform be? If it is a scope of sharing photos between your family members, yeah, it's the same thing as like doing an email. But if it's the scope is to be able to share data with everybody, it means that you shouldn't really be encrypting that data so that everybody has access to it. Like Twitter, I can post something on Twitter, everybody can see it.
Right. Well, that's why the file-based scenario is so appealing to me, because essentially it's just it's an S3 link, right? It's not it's AWS, but it has the S3 format, so it looks exactly like an AWS S3 link. But basically, anybody with that link can access that data, right?
I know, but then you're breaking the third rule, data ownership.
No, the file base, I have to create a file base account. Then I control everything in that account. That I can put data there, but I can provide a link to that data that anyone with that link can access.
Okay, right. Yeah, so yeah, that's sort of what I'm referring to. So like you can targeted information.
You got to speak
Dan, I
up.
don't think we can hear you. We cannot hear you very well.
Yeah, speak up, please.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of what I mean, like targeted permission. So you could store your data and decide who gets access by a link or by some
Right, but I think it's Sava. I'm not seeing people's screen at the moment. You know, basically it's a question of scope. I mean, who is accessing the data? Is it anybody on the internet who has that link? Right? I mean, can you do that? If I have my files on my machine, am I giving people access to anyone on the internet access to my IP address on my machine? I'm not sure, you know, if I'm comfortable with that. So
no, yeah, no. I think it's definitely a question of layers. For example, it depends on. We're talking about social network platforms, so let's assume chat and sharing images. So there's that. So yeah, it's what is this layer? If you're just creating a small group with your family, then data is shared between you. If you're creating a wider group with every family, then it's wider. If it's a public thing that you want other people to be able to subscribe to content that you push out, so
Yeah.
that's another layer.
yeah, I think the scope observation is a good one, and we don't have to drink the ocean necessarily, right? I mean, there is the public scenario like Twitter and Facebook, where anyone on the planet can see your data if you give them access. There's one thing, but there's also something to be said for the family scenario that you were also mentioning, where it's just a small group of the entire scope of the system is targeted for a small family circle of friends or family. I think that's also entirely valid and may suggest a different implementation, which is totally fine. I think both should be on the table.
Yeah. Because if we look at decentralized storage, let's look at censorship resistance on data, for example, Twitter. What we want is not allowing one entity to be able to close down Twitter, and then you do need decentralized storage. I agree on that. So I think definitely what is the scope of what we are aiming towards?
Right, right. I am thinking big, but I don't want anyone to think they have to do that. If you want to think small, you know, family circles type of size of scope, that is also fine. But what I'm really going for personally is every person on the planet can speak, period, no matter what country they're in. And the only way to stop them is to shut down the internet, right? So those are the types of designs that I'm personally interested in. And it doesn't really, I don't really see hosting that data on my personal laptop. I don't think that's feasible. So I'm looking for a decentralized solution for the data itself that is not centralized in any way. But but that's just one idea. Okay, that's one type of scope, and I'm that's what I'm pursuing. But we can pursue smaller scopes. I think they're equally valid, and they may or may not be as easily implemented. They may actually be harder. The reason why they're harder is because the more local you get, the more technical it sounds to my ears. Right? There's more bits and pieces that are kind of moving and have to be managed by a techie. right? That's what I'm hearing just from my gut right now. It seems a little bit complicated. When you're starting to host, images from your own machine, then that's probably something my mother is not going to be able to handle, right? Or my sister.
Oh, she's got to be able. If they can use OneDrive, I think then
Okay.
she should be able to use it.
Okay, well, that's good. So yeah, I mean, let's work it through. Let's create some diagrams. Let's talk about it some more. This is just the opening conversation, and that was data storage. Any more comments on data storage?
I have a comment which is more general. Have we had any research done on past platforms that have attempted decentralized social media, and we found that they have failed, and the reasons they have failed?
Good. That's a good. You should mention that. I remembered a decentralized journalism platform called Civil, 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 that was sponsored by Consensus, the Ethereum conglomerate. And it's interesting. Look them up. They failed to essentially, they did a whatever the crypto version of an IPO is, I forget now, but they tried twice to sell their coins, and once they were going for, I think it was an $8 million cap, and the other one was and that failed. They didn't sell the coins. The other one was a $13 million cap. That failed also. They got really high profile, people from government and the journalism, newspaper industry involved, all kinds of investors. They got a lot of press. They got a lot of journalists from all over the country, all over the world involved in this. But at the end of the day, they couldn't sell it to the general public, which is a pity. But at the same time, I think it's worth studying because I think that this is an idea they had where they recruited a lot of people without actually having the tech in place first. And so I think this is different because we're not trying to create a decentralized newspaper, but we could, in the sense that if we can simply decentralize speech, then use cases like newspapers, like journals, can be built on top of that. But we need to provide the basic technology first to enable free speech on a decentralized platform, and then all kinds of use cases will emerge from that. So I'm going to do more. I'm going to go back and try and find as much as I can on Civil, and just put it in my notebook, because I think there's a lot to learn about what they try to do and how they went about doing it. I think with a lot of these early coins that were created, there was no tech behind it.
Yeah, I would be careful on associating their failure to raise money in an ICO to technical reasons, because back then ICOs, there was at some point, they were affected by market conditions, not necessarily by the ability to implement the tech. So it would be interesting to see why they failed, and if it's because they just it was a bear market and nobody wanted to invest. Maybe the idea was
Could be. Yeah. So anyway, that's a good point. Yes, there are some examples that are related to what we're trying to do here. Does anyone have any others?
I've dropped a link on the text channel. So this is Sovren Media. This was launched by Ben Swan. He's an independent journalist, and I think you can get some inspiration from there, see how they're doing things, and see how that applies to what you're trying to do as well.
Okay, gotcha. All right, let me look at my list here. Okay, was that data ownership? We got the storage. That was storage. Okay, portability and interoperability. The user must have the means to move their data to another location. I use the word location here to just mean any sort of, setup. Any comments on that? Portability and
Well, I
interoperability.
suppose
Go ahead.
I suppose it's got a lot to do with the type of data that's being stored, right? Is it text data? Is it image data? If we're talking about images and files, that's pretty simple. Just move it to another location and decrypt it away. That's pretty easy. But if you're looking at the sort of data you got on Twitter or Facebook, where you've got posts, it's structured data. It's I suppose a happy medium ground for that would be some sort of JSON format, exported to files.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The way I see this part on the interoperability and the portability is that we would need to define a standard that could be adopted by any other platform in order to be able to understand the data structures. So if we think about something like an implementation guide, where the implementation guide is responsible to define the interoperability standards. So what every field means, what is it? What are their constraints, their data types, and the usages, so that if any other system, blockchain or central or whatever it may be, needs to be able to access that data and interoperate with it, then it would understand it.
Right. There is a new foundation. It's only about a year old, maybe a year and a half old, called the Trust Over IP Foundation. Trust Over IP. I'm typing in the chat. And they have many working groups, but one of them is the Storage and Portability Working Group. I'm just going to put it in here.
But I want to challenge this step 5 to ask, is this really needed for a decentralized social media?
Well,
assuming data is public anyway, why would be a requirement that you can move the data?
because this addresses the problem that if you listen to and for instance, just to give you an example, the nostr guys, right? One of their big complaints was that they can't take their data, including their followers, to a new platform, which is a problem when they get banned from the platform. They lose their data. They can't access their data anymore. So this is one of the issues that this addresses. That's just one example. Essentially, it's platform lock-in, right? And that's what it's trying to address. So it also pertains to ownership of data. If you're locked out of a platform, then you've lost ownership of that, control of that data that's on the platform, or could be. You know, it's a little nebulous, but that's where this is coming from. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. You know, this is from one perspective, this is kind of a no-brainer in terms of implementation. I think that the X42 guys are spot on with this is really just a standards issue, right? There is a body that I just posted in the chat who are actually creating the standard right now. For much more complicated stuff like medical information and stuff like that, legal documents, that sort of thing. But I think we need to go look at what they're doing and see if we can get on the same page with them in order to get some buy-in from the larger SSI community, because these guys are serious. These are serious heavy hitters over there. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I think portability would go under ownership, as you say. I mean, if you have ownership, you have also
Yeah. So, but I hear you, Dan. This is something that I think we need to nail down a little bit more, and maybe separate portability from interoperability. Maybe it has to be its own requirement, and maybe it's not a hard requirement. Don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
Any other comments on portability and interoperability? Okay. Number 6, identity. A user must have complete control over and access to the mechanism that proves their claims of who they are. So just if you haven't looked at my research notes that are on the documentation pages there, you know, KERI is a new development in the SSI space, the self-sovereign space. And I've been studying it now for about 2 years. This is what I've been doing all this time, is thinking about the KERI protocols and kind of waiting for it to get sort of finished in terms of the design phase, and as well as the implementation phase. There are now 2 implementations of the protocol. One's in Python and the other one is in Rust. It's taking hold. There are other protocols coming out of this that kind of extend it and kind of drill down into it. One is called CESR, and combined they kind of handle the questions of proof of identity, proof of attribution, and proof of veracity. So I was wondering, has anyone had a chance to look at KERI yet, and would they be interested in studying it with me? And if so, we could create a KERI working group within Blockcore.
With a little bit on it.
I would be definitely interested to know about it more. Yes, looks interesting.
Okay, well, I'm going to take that as a yes, and let's.
I would be interested too.
What's that?
Also, I would be interested.
Okay, great. Let's create a KERI channel in the Blockcore forums, and then let's discuss maybe meeting regularly to learn about KERI and think about, you know, can we create our own version of KERI just from the white paper, which is what I've been paying attention to, or do we really need to translate the Rust or wrap Rust? But this really is taking the SSI community by storm, and for good reason, and we can get into that in different conversations. If you just look at my, I don't want to waste too much time, but I put a lot of information already on the documentation pages under the social media article to have a look at. Any other thoughts on a decentralized social media platform?
I think one take that comes out from this, that immediately stands out is
Hey, Dan, please speak up.
I think one take that immediately comes out for me is that decentralized social media is a very wide concept, and you probably need to narrow down to more specifics, because there are some ideas with conflict with other ideas, or the requirements won't fit. Like if you want to do a public thing that everybody can, like a Twitter. Like there is a big difference between a Twitter and a Facebook, for example, in terms of what are the requirements.
Maybe. The nostr guys think that it's just a different, it's a different rendering of the same data. Literally, that's what they said. If you listen to the thing, right? It's the same data, it's just rendered a different way. But there's one. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not so entirely sure about that, but one of the things, like, I've had some ideas for decentralized social media myself for a while, and the main sort of architectural theme in that social network is that it should be based around social networks in real life and be built around trust using cryptography. So, and decentralized identities. So let's say if you have kids, right? So you create an identity that is sort of your name, but it's associated with the school or the kindergarten, and then you're connected to the parents of the other children there. And they also have control of their own children, right? So you join this group together, and then you should be able to sort of have some approval lists and stuff that is shared there. It's only shared among those identities, and you put some trust in those identities. But I don't want to mix that at all, right? With my Blockcore identity or my Liberstad identity.
Right.
But I think the main thing is like we need to have a system here where you can easily control your network in a way. I don't remember what it was called, but there's a Discord called the Blue Sky, which is basically some research initiated by Twitter to come up with what will the future of social media look like. And there's a lot of people with many different projects there, and one of them is called 150 something, where you will have a hard limit at 150 sort of connections that you can have.
Yeah.
And one of the ideas there, which I also had before, is that like I log in here and I can select sort of, do I want to see my inner circle of friends or my second circle of friends, right? So if I know I have like 10 minutes to go in and look whatever people are sharing, and then I could pick, I only want to see my top 3 tier of friends, and then I will quickly scan through whatever they have posted since last time and be done with it, right? But today the way it works is like you go on Facebook, you can scroll forever. There's always new data.
Yeah. I think those are all excellent. I like your first comments about different circles of identity, essentially, right?
Yeah.
You and I have talked about this in the past. I fully agree with you. And I think that's very exciting. The other reason why it's exciting is because this could be a way to resonate with the general public. I mean, what do they want, right? What is it they want out of a social media platform? They want to see their pictures of their nephews and nieces, right? And that sort of thing. There may be some other people who are interested in, I don't know, drones, and so. Perhaps we can get back to basics about what are what's social about this platform, and then as you say, we start building systems around identity and trust. I think that's probably the right way to go. So I'm very interested in exploring that more. I fully agree with you. It may be a new approach to social media that's more true in terms of why people use it, right? Anybody else? Any other comments? Okay, that's my segment of this, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. If I can figure
Okay, so thank you very much, Dennis. That was great.
And there's still the decentralized DNS to talk about, but do we want to save that for another time, or do we want to talk about it now?
I think we will have a quick
Okay.
chat about it, because the dude and myself, we started to define it, and we're just gonna quickly, lay out the conclusions we came up to and what we're gonna start implementing. So it won't be a long one. It's just quick discussions for those who want to
Great.
talk about it. Yeah, but just one question to you, Dennis, going back to this decentralized social media about Nostr. You said that the Nostr guys, they seem to be quite advanced.
No.
already.
Please listen to if you have, what's that one music casting company called? I put it in the chat. Listen to the whole interview. These guys are just dicking around. Basically,
Okay.
They don't have anything really except for good ideas.
Okay. Great. I'll listen to the chat.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not very far along at all.
So shall we quickly? Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to ask you, Dennis. So you mentioned you want a platform where everybody has a voice as social media.
Yep.
But I think, I mean, if I think about how I use Facebook right now, so I'd say maybe 99.9% of the posts I'm not being exposed to. So I think the focus is more on who wants to listen rather than who wants to say something. So what I'm trying to say is everybody has a voice, and when I log in, I can choose what kind of feeds I want to get access to, right?
Mm-hmm.
For instance, you would like to see photos of your niece,
Mhm.
as you mentioned. So
I think I understand what you're saying. I mean, one function of social media in general is that it's a huge worldwide magazine of topics that one is interested in, right? Is that what you're saying? And you can choose the topics that you're interested in, and then passively you get a feed of that kind of information coming into your page. Is that what you're saying?
yes, kind of. So yeah, exactly. Basically, I connect to whatever feed I want to see,
Mm-hmm.
rather than being exposed to the entire enormity of that network.
Right.
And that's where the storage also becomes, in my mind, a key point.
Yes.
Because if we take influencers as an example, I mean, you said them correctly. My grandmother wouldn't want to host her own data,
Right.
and you would have third-party suppliers for that. But influencers, for instance, these are professional people,
Mm-hmm.
and they would have very powerful servers with failovers, and they would all, as I see it, would be part of the same social network.
It's a good point. I don't have a solution in my mind for topic browsing. I can't visualize it, how I would implement that in a decentralized way. And I am obsessed with data storage. I think that is a problem. I really do. And we need to explore solutions there. Obviously, I'm open to all solutions, but I really do. I'm paying attention to that. Yeah, and then you're right. There are different kinds of users in the world who want to speak, essentially. And then there are users who want to listen, as you say. It's the listening part, actually, I'm a little fuzzy on. I'm not sure how to implement in a decentralized way the kind of topic browsing that we can do now with the centralized platforms. For me, it's a difficult problem.
Are you
Yeah.
referring to like the algorithms that Facebook are running to decide what data to serve to you?
Well, the thing is, I mean, I can set up a connection with my niece and see her content. That's easy. I can visualize how to implement that. But to set up a feed, a decentralized feed for, let's say a hobby of mine, drones, let's say. How would I do that exactly? I'm not, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Like the topic is drones, then you want data about drones from
Yeah, or whatever, Madonna. I mean, how do I the 1,000 outlets out there who just want to talk about Madonna? I'm not exactly sure how to pull those into my feed in a decentralized way. It's something I cannot visualize in my head just yet. And I think that's what the dude is talking about. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think we need to probably break down what is social media and break it down into its
Use cases.
separate components. So to think about what are the use cases? What are the user stories? What is it that I'm trying to achieve? So in order to be able to break down, am I trying to look at a public feed? Am I trying to look at only private feeds? Is it a hashtag solution that I'm looking for? Because I think before you start looking at solutions, we need to understand what it is that we're trying to do, looking at the requirements part of it. So just trying to break it down, I mean, from a logical perspective, I'm trying to build a social media platform. Therefore, what is it that the social media platform should be able to do? Connect me with my friends and family, connect me with public figures, connect me with influencers, because at the end of the day, I think this is a big part of social media. Connect me with companies, connect me with subjects, connect me with people that I'm interested to connect with, or other people that are interested to connect with me. So I think there is a point of discovery, a point of choosing who I want, I do not want, being able to block someone, being able to not see someone, just as I'm allowed to ask for to see something. I may want to restrict from someone else seeing what I want. I don't want them to see. So
Right.
I think there's a lot of different stories that we need to tell ourselves in order to understand what it is that we really need and want to do.
Yep.
Yeah, I think actually it's the opposite when centralized network, social network. You would subscribe to everything, and then you want to prevent it, some central authority censoring the data you subscribe to. So then you could apply local filters as to how, you could run your own filter on the data that is being served to you once you receive it. But let's say you subscribe to some influencer, and so you want to make sure that everything they post, you get it, and nobody else can filter. No centralized authority can filter it. So it's not about who can I subscribe to. You can subscribe to anyone, and then locally, applying algorithmic filters to not view data. This will be done on your network, on your behalf, based under your control.
Okay. I did not understand that, Dan. I'm sorry. I wasn't able to follow it.
So basically, for example, right now if you browse Facebook, you are served content you never asked for. So like there is some algorithm that Facebook is running.
Oh, right.
To show.
Yes. Okay. Now I see. Yeah. Well. Here's the thing. Yeah. Here's the thing. These centralized social media platforms, they survive, but through advertising, right? So that's the other thing that we haven't talked about yet, which was in my article, which is simply that we're not productizing the user. So all of that just goes away. I mean, it's not necessary as long as we can come up with a different revenue model, which is incredibly important, right? Then this unasked for information flowing into your feed, it was simply not going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Just so also that Elon Musk announced that they might actually take payment from businesses, governments that use Twitter eventually.
Yeah, that's fair, actually.
Yeah.
Probably a very big source of revenue that they could tap into. For that revenue, it will be super cheap to get access.
Yeah. So it's an advertisement platform for corporations today.
Yeah.
And they pay nothing.
And they pay nothing right now, exactly. We pay. The consumers pay by viewing ads.
No, but not even ads. Like, there's a lot of corporations that just have regular posts, right? That someone retweet or share or like, and then we get exposure to that.
As well, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I think that maybe another idea then is to also create another category for research, which are essentially revenue models. I naively think that we can come up with a coin, a crypto coin, that supports the mission of the platform. But I could be wrong. So, maybe maybe we need to break this out as a separate topic and start brainstorming about revenue models that make sense in this particular context for us.
Yeah, that's definitely a different topic. I
Yes.
agree.
But vital. If you don't know how you're going to support your network before you've launched it, then I think you're dead, right? This has to all be thought through.
Yeah, the reason it's a separate topic is because it's a whole very important part of how you would create incentives both
Right.
on the user and anybody running nodes or anybody.
This is why I would like to, I don't know if maybe I glossed over this, but I would like to come up with another modified proof of work consensus where I swap out the useless puzzle for the actual work of the platform, which would, in this case, would be, I think, a verifying identity on various levels I outlined earlier. That was the work that the nodes did for the platform, and overall we're providing value to the user so that the coin becomes a sought after commodity. But that's just my naive idea. I don't know what you guys think about it, but I'd like to talk about it at some point in the near future.
You'd have to explain the modified algo, and then I could.
Yes. Well, what is the work to be done? That's the thing that needs to be addressed first. So that's where I'm at with that, right? And so, in order to answer that question, I need to know more about KERI, exactly what it can do for us in this context. How exactly do the identity validations work? And then there's the CESR protocols. I want to understand that more. I want to package it up into coherent functionality, and then maybe that can be the work that the node network does for the platform. And then where can we go from there? Can we make that a valuable commodity? I think we can, but I need your help. I need your brain power to help me, frankly. Okay.
All right. So can I quickly move on to talking about DNS?
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay.